Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fellowship in Essential Oils. Today we're diving into a magical and mystical floral oil. Today we're exploring Magnolia. How are you today, Liz?
I'm very much in a Champaca mood, which is very good for everybody. So I guess we should begin by saying that most people will say to me, well, they're the same oil, aren't they? Magnolia and Champaca. And kind of they are and kind of they're not. So let's begin with that.
I think so.
So that's a bit like saying, I've got pine oil, but do you have Siberian pine, Scotch pine? So Champaca is a subspecies of the Magnoliaceae species. Genus is enormous, and this is Michelia Champaca, which is a kind of magnolia, but it isn't the magnolia that we have in the UK, for example, with its beautiful big white blossoms. This is a yellow one, which looks a bit like, I guess, Magnolia stellata, which we would know in the Western world, with like the star-shaped leaves that are yellow. And so you can actually get lots of different types of Champaca. The most popular one is white Champaca, but I noticed that Heritage Oils have got a red Champaca, which now the addiction feels like it might be tingling a little bit. So yeah. So also Al Shadi have a Magnolia essential oil. This is a Champaca Absolute. We say Champaca essential oil, but it's an absolute. And as I say, Champaca comes from Michelia Champaca tree. Magnolia essential oil from Osha D comes from Magnolia grandiflora. And so it's interesting to see that we all talk about the same oil, but when we look carefully, we're like, oh, well, wait, are we? Are we talking about the same oil? So for me, I am going to be talking about Champaca, even though I do have Magnolia essential oil too. And I might refer to it, but for the most part, I think most people are interested in Champaca.
But I'm actually going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons here. The Magnolia essential oil that I work with and that doTERRA has is Michelia alba.
Right, so that's probably right. So that is the white Champaca.
Yeah, from China.
Right, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most of them come from sort of Thailand, Indonesia, India, and it's such a sacred oil because of the scent. So it's not surprising that so many people are going, "Oh, having that, I'm having that, I'm having that." It's a bit like I want all the different roses, I guess, to them.
Definitely. Would you tell me a little bit? I haven't smelled, apart from the one Magnolia that I've worked with, that's the only one I have experience with aroma wise. Are the Champacas, how would you describe their aroma, which is always a hard challenge, I know.
So actually, I can steal from the Hermitage site because I just thought that is so clever. They described how it had a blend of like rose and ylang ylang tuberose green tea, and I was like, oh, yes, it is really heady and deep. Kind of jasmine intoxicating, but it's got a much deeper scent, but actually the vibration is really, really ethereal and high. So even though it smells quite deep, it really operates as a top note in a blend. So it's fascinating. Um, and it does appear famously in what I think is one of the greatest scents of all time, the perfume called Joy by Jean Patou, which was designed in 1929 by Henri Alvarez. And it's the most expensive. I think if I remember rightly, they had 10,000 roses in it. And it has rose and ylang ylang and many, many different things. And it is absolutely indulgent. And this stood the test of time. You can still buy it now. I love it. It's uber feminine. So and I would say Champaca appears quite a lot in sort of artisanal fragrance houses as a single note, because why would you mix it with anything else? It's so intoxicating, but you don't really see it in mainstream perfumes. It's too expensive. So yeah, and actually I tried very hard to put a magnolia in my hair, and it just fell apart, and it had only been in blossom for about a week, and they're already falling apart. So the season for them is really short. So of course that adds to the not only the value because it's such a heady perfume, but also how short the season is. And there's Dr. Bruce Bukowski has written a, oh, sorry about the train being aggressive. Dr. Bruce Bukowski has written a fantastic piece, loads and lots on Champaca. And he did a lovely, he started with a fantastic thing about Rudolf Steiner and his thoughts about, I want to say anthropomorphism, that's wrong. The word that's close to that, it's gone out of my head, when he talks about the nature of God in nature, and he talks about how the spirit of the divine comes down to earth, and the last thing to enter into a plant is the fragrance, and so the fragrance shows that divinity is very, very close to you. But with the Champaca tree, they say that you can smell the scent of a tree 100 meters away because it's so rich and so intoxicating. So yeah, I don't think I answered your question of what it smells like, but I think I can like the feeling of the smell, if you like.
And do you have, out of all the different species that we've been talking about, is there one that you have and work with the most?
Yeah, so I Champaca, and I can tell you that I bought it from Kathy's Attars when I went to a fantastic workshop with Kathy Skipper and Florian and Bert Meyer, and we did Alchemy of the Soul, and they just laid out their different oils that they got, and it was just like, oh, I need them all because her distillations are so fantastic, and Champaca is the most expensive of all her oils, but honestly, that and her patchouli are just magnificent, better than any oils I've ever smelt. Yeah.
Now, do you use them more purely for their fragrance and their perfume, or do they have any healing aspects from your side?
Oh yeah, so yeah, it's very healing oil.
Yeah.
It's used an awful lot in like spiritually in sort of Indonesia, Java, Tibet. There's an awful lot of mythology around it, which I'll talk about, but also it's really important to their indigenous medicine. So particularly it's stomachic, it's very good for stomach complaints. It's very cooling. It's interesting because from an Ayurvedic point of view, it really is kind of Vata dosha and Pitta dosha, which are almost opposite. So Pitta, whether it's cooling, but Vata, it's very, very grounding to the Vata way of being flighty thought. And now I'm thinking, I've got a feeling that it's used for leprosy over there, but I'm not going to prescribe that, but I do think it's used for leprosy, but also very antioxidant, tremendous for the skin, very good for the skin, antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, lots of research into its antifungal abilities. But it's such an expensive oil, and it is really overwhelming to a blend. I wouldn't think that you would like if you got a stomach ache, you wouldn't go, oh, I'm going to use Champaca. You just wouldn't. It's too expensive. But if you were thinking, oh gosh, my skin just really needs something beautiful, then definitely so. And also for people who have got candida and the like the fungal infection is like right through the body and causing cataclysmic effects, then you don't want to have things like tea tree and stuff like that because it's so depressing to have those kind of conditions. And you feel bloody horrible. Champaca is all about how beautiful you feel. And so that's like a real deep medicine from the point of view that you've got this yeast infection and you feel vile, and you've got all of these interactions with sugar that cause up all sorts of things like urine infections and stuff like that. Champaca is very good at going, right, let's look at this and really calm the situation down, and let's just feel a bit more calm than you did, and work from the inside. So I do work with Champaca quite a lot from a psychological point of view, and from a spiritual point of view, it does have lots of physical properties, but that wouldn't be my sort of leaning. But we talk a lot about sort of molecules and sort of power molecules on this show, and I mean it's the Champaca has got around about 73% linalool, so really calming, whereas the Magnolia essential oil from Oshadi, I don't know whether mine is the same batch as they've got the GCMS for, but the one that they've got, current one they've got, about 59% linalool, so less, but the chemistry is really similar between them. And actually, we should talk a little bit about the chemistry, because there are other power molecules apart from linalool. There's a sort of low levels of beta caryophyllene, for example. That's another favourite of ours. Very good for pain of any description. And Champaca does have this lovely sort of soothing aspect, but it's quite antispasmodic, which is kind of a nature of beta caryophyllene, I find. But also, importantly, it has a very, very small amount of methyl eugenol, around about, I think, 2% in Champaca, about 1% in Magnolia. And we're not really that interested about what methyl eugenol does in this context, except that there are suspicions that it could be a carcinogenic. And so oils that have that molecule in have really, really low maximum dilutions because of that problem. And so maximum dilution for Champaca is 0.4% if you look at IFRA, which is the International Fragrance Association or regulation. But Tisserand and Young say 0.8%, and that is what I work to as well. I think it's overly cautious, but you don't want huge amounts of it, because also it is really intoxicating. It is really overpowering.
I love, in the Magnolia I work with, the linalool's around 70%. So we really lean into that when you think it's probably, about double what you've got in a lavender. So really, really calming. Beautiful, like you said, love it for the skin. I love to apply, after I've cleansed and toned, a little bit on the skin with your moisturizer. Really, really nice. What we've found as well is, we're never putting oils in our eyes, but around this kind of, I call it the panda bone, where that kind of, where we can feel that bone there, a little bit around there. It's really, really calming, especially if people have been on a computer for a long time. It's very, very nice in that way. But another place I love it for a practical reason is on the soles of the feet, and mixing that with the Acari oil, diluting that and allowing that to soak through your body throughout the night. So calming. And we've had so many people that, funnily enough, from my experience, it's the Magnolia we work with I don't think it's got this intoxicating aroma that sits ylang ylang and jasmine like you're talking about. It is a little bit more earthy, but people either love it or they hate it. But it is very effective in its soothing, calming way. It's a beautiful night oil for sure.
What was interesting actually is on my Aromatic Mystery School Facebook page, I did a post of what oils do you use for trauma. And just looking for like one word answers. And rightly, a lot of therapists came and said, actually, it's going to depend on the nature of the trauma, how somebody's feeling, how we would approach it, and really good, educated answers. But also, as you went down the list, there were lots of things like spikenard and frankincense and vetiver, but Champaca came up lots and lots of times. Lots of therapists seem to choose Champaca for trauma. That wouldn't have been something I would have thought about, but I can really see how that would work because it's really steadying.
Well, the interesting thing is, the Magnolia species of tree has been around for around 95 million years, and they've found fossils of it. So it's got this great for me, when we look at the floral trees, we've got things that, the ones I work most with would also be rose, jasmine, neroli, osmanthus, gardenia, ylang ylang. And they've got this real kind of queenly or princessly energy. But I find for magnolia, for me, it has this real queen mother, grandmotherly, wise, calming, soothing, crone type energy about it. And so I really love it for, I can see why it would be so comforting in moments of trauma and healing and basically just needing that kind of um, wise, steady hand or comforting guidance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to speak to there. The fossilized magnolias are interesting because they predate insects even by a long, long way. And then then they proved that they predate humans by a long way, and they proved that the first magnolias were pollinated by beetles.
Yes.
But then through time, the tree adapted to create new molecules to bring in new bees. And as bees were invented, wherever bees came from, probably developed from wasps, wherever wasps came from, as bees came into the environment, the magnolia changed to attract bees as their pollinator, which I thought was like such fascinating science. Who sat down and did that? That was really interesting. But so it's a difficult conversation now because I completely disagree with your assessment of what the vibration of it is. And that's probably because I'm using a different distillation of a different plant. But there's nothing sort of crone-like about mine. It's very much like the raw war goddess, like the Venus in her most powerful sensual aspect, like she growls at you. She's so in her body. It's really, really aphrodisiac, I think. So that's really interesting to see. So what would be fascinating in the comments is as people is watching, if you're watching with your bottle of oil, which I know you are, right, so how do you feel that in your body? Because that's two different oils, clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's just, at this point, go back through your names of the ones you work with.
So Magnolia grandiflorum is the Oshdi one, which is from Magnolia. There's Michelia Champaca, which is what I work with, but also Michelia alba, which is what you work with. I hope that's right now because I haven't got it written in front of me.
Yeah. So I guess here we're talking about, very different plants. But I'd love to know. Okay, so with the ones that you work with, it's got that personality. How would you use it on that spiritual level?
So I find it really useful for people who have got cut off from their sexuality. So whether that be through trauma, whether that be through maybe you've come through a family where sexuality is very much a thing we just don't talk about. Don't be and there's a Madonna whore kind of divide. So one must be a Madonna, and then we don't go to that place. Well, of course, that's really not very helpful long term, is it? But that kind of social conditioning can be really quite harmful. So from there, and also when women have had babies or have gone through the menopause and they just don't feel like their old self, that sensual self has gone, they've become divorced from it, helping to bring those two back together would be my ways of working with it. And actually, in the articles by Bruce Bukowski, he talks similarly about how he feels that it brings together the second and seventh chakra, and also the second and the fourth chakra, and also seventh and sixth chakra. So like love translating into sensuality. thought translating into sensuality, where like there seems to be like a synaptic disconnect where the sensuality just can't, like kundalini if you like, can't be expressed because of conditioning, because of trauma, because of something that's going on in the brain or something that's gone on hormonally.
Yeah, fascinating. So let me take people on the Michelle Alba kind of conversation. So as I said, I find it this really kind of grandmotherly energy. Being a white flower that this is, or a soft pink kind of aroma color, white flowers I've always said are connected to the moon. So jasmine is my favorite for the full moon. It's got that beautiful, connect. It's that very, very magical. It helps us connect with the divine and so on. And then you've got neroli, which is also a white flower. And they're a really nice duet on the full moon. Jasmine helps you connect with the moon, and neroli helps you to work out what do I need to do to be part of that manifestation? How do I shift as well? But magnolia, I shift around to the other half of the lunar cycle. It's my favorite new moon essential oil because of that wisdom and that guidance in that way. So I think it's a really beautiful one to work with, to meditate with around that new moon time, to bring you, because of that high lineal level, to bring in that comforting, that reflective, but also that long-term perspective because of its grandmotherly energy and that 95 million years of wisdom that's collected. It knows a few things. So it has one of the key words I find is really reassuring. So it allows us, as we work with the lunar cycle, as they go around every 28 days or so, to kind of not just think about what do I want now, but what do I want in the long term, and what will be the long-term effects of the choices and the decisions and the intentions that I set for today as well. So really beautiful to work in that way. But because of its reassuring attribute, the other way I really love to use it is I think it's a great one for self-forgiveness. And we get home at the end of the day and we're beating ourselves up because we didn't get everything done, or we forgot someone's birthday, or we weren't perfect on that day for whatever reason. And it's as if Magnolia comes in for me and says, like that comforting grandmotherly energy, and goes, "Love, I've been through 15 world wars, 19 husbands, and 15 pandemics. And what you're worrying about today, it doesn't matter." Really kind of comforting to go, okay, it's just one day. And so what I love to do, and this is what a guy in his mid-40s will do, at night, I will get the Magnolia and I will draw hearts over my chest, and I'll just look in the mirror and go, today you were enough. You may not have been perfect, and tomorrow is another day, but you were enough. And just really feeling that reassurance. So that is why I find Magnolia is this comforting oil that works really well in the dark moon, in the new moon, for bringing that long-term perspective, but also that reassurance that you're, day by day by day. Elizabeth was referring before about how the tree has evolved over 95 million years or so to change from being pollinated by beetles to now being pollinated by bees. Rome wasn't built in a day. Magnolias didn't change in a day, and you don't have to get it all right today. And so it's really beautiful. So for me, it's a nighttime oil and brings that real comfort. And my main word and the gift that I find it brings is reassurance to us.
I love that. Visions of you and your little hearts. But for me, I feel it's more of a sacred plant than that. I did a little reel about a fortnight ago, actually, of a tree that's local to us, a magnolia tree. It's in the grounds of the vets, and it's an absolutely colossal tree. And I've been really watching trees around us after watching a fantastic video by Asia Sula, and she was talking about the guardian trees, and where are the guardian trees in your life, and where are the guardian trees in your town. And I was thinking, oh, there's definitely the yew tree by the castle. There's some more yews in the churchyard at St Leonard's. But what about that magnolia tree? And so this is as I say, it's outside the vets. It's right on the banks of the river, at a place where the river often will flood, and quite often it will be just sitting in this sort of huge, not puddle, but like massive flood all down the road. And then like a couple of weeks later, you think, oh, that's really going to suffer, but it's just drunk up all of this water and just become magnificent. And it's like whether we had a terrible time, you were all looking at me because there was so much water, you were looking at the floods. Just look how life changes. And in Hinduism, it's the traditional offering to the god Shiva, who is destruction and beauty from death, but also from the transformation of life, but also to Vishnu. It's his sacred plant, where he is the guardian of creation in the universe. You know that there will always be light and dark, and it has that nature for me. But Hinduism also talks about how the god Kama, who is probably like best described as what we would know as Eros in the Western world, the god of love, but sensual love. He dips his arrows into the Champaca leaf and shoots them to send sensuality through the world. And yeah, so for me, I intend to do a much deeper course on Champaca for people, because I think it is one of those oils that's a real sacred oil, certainly in Hinduism it is, and also it's seen to be the embodiment of the goddess Lakshmi. Interestingly, so is holy basil, and I can't think of two more different oils, but I'm trying to remember. Yes, so holy basil is considered to be satmi, which means that there is it's pure energy, but with no sensuality to it. It doesn't go through the physical body. So therefore, even though vetiver has that sacredness, it doesn't have the satmi because it's not. It definitely is about the body. And so is Champaca. And so you've got this like the personification of Lakshmi. She is beauty, prosperity, love, all of those beautiful things in the body with Champaca, but in the sort of spiritual realm that transcends all of that physicality, she's holy basil. It's really interesting to work with the two together because they smell completely different, but putting them together, they smell amazing.
Interesting, for sure. So when you're talking about this kind of body spirit connection, and you spoke a little bit about the chakras before, is there a particular chakra you find Champaca works really well with?
Yeah, it's for me sacral chakra, but also crown chakra.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas
Sort of
I would
being able
definitely
to
place the
feel the
heart.
beauty. Yeah, but yeah, I can see how heart. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And for you, is there one particular deity that you lean towards? You've mentioned obviously Shiva and Vishnu and everyone, and
Well, I think Kama, the god of love and the sensuality of love.
yeah, fair enough. Whereas I'm totally different, and for me, Magnolia's got this big Hecate energy about it. Again, that wise woman that been around for a long time, all-knowing, helping us to trust ourselves and trust our guidance and define that inner guidance as well. Works really well with asteroid 100, which is named Hecate, which we can look in our birth chart as well. So, yeah, I guess today has been an interesting lesson in when you see something, you can. When you see a different oil, this is why Latin names are really important.
That's a really interesting observation that you've made, and actually, so I haven't really talked about it on here, but I am designing a course about making offerings to deities.
Mm.
With a guy who is also Melissa called Rowan, who is Melissa, but also is a devotee of Hecate, and he's studied Hinduism very deeply. And we're looking at Hecate's three of her many epithets. So we're going to be diving into Kudra, which is her sort of mothering aspect, where she looks after infants and infertility and pregnancy and all of that. So like the nurse, almost like Alithea aspect. We're also looking at her aspect as Timbidia, which means tombs, she who dances in the tombs with the dead, and also Hecate Crocopeplos, which is saffron clad. And we're looking at different ways to blend your essential oils to be able to bring the personality of the goddess in. And actually, one of my oils, without giving too many secrets away, for Crocopeplos is Champaca. Yeah, that transformational energy is she's saffron clad. She's the dawn. You know, that moment of coming out of darkness into dawn. So I completely get that. So that hasn't gone in sale yet, but it will be running through June. So if people are interested in that, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel to see it.
Yeah. So a question I love to ask you, is this an oil everyone needs?
I don't think everyone can afford it, is the answer to that.
Yeah.
I think everybody should want it and strive towards it. I think it really depends on how you're using essential oils. If you are just like doing first aid box stuff, if I want it because I want my skin to look better, there's just as good oils. You know, you could use geranium, you could use helichrysum, you could use, you know, lots of different things that are going to be really good for your skin that aren't going to cost you the earth. I have to be careful to say that because it's not actually it is a sustainable crop, so you don't have to worry about it being the actual earth. But if you are looking at working from a spiritual perspective or working metaphysically and really want to engage with people on their emotional level and on their mental level, yeah, I think it is an oil that you should really try and work towards it. And I'm going to be really naughty now and say, I would go for Kathy Skipper's as well. Kathy Zattar's. It's, if you want to get the one that I'm talking about, it is beautiful.
Amazing. Well, I think I've got a little bit of shopping to do. I'm really curious about the species and the ones that you've been working with because I've got a feeling that their energy and their vibration is totally, totally different. So we'll have to catch up and compare notes and see the difference between these Champacas and these Magnolias for sure.
Definitely.
Well, hopefully we've given you some insight and maybe we've just confused you a little bit. But remember that our job isn't to tell you the truth, it's to help you unveil your own truth. So grab your Champacas, grab your Magnolias, and we would love to know your experience in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you know there's someone in your life who would also benefit from hearing about this, share it with them as well. We'd really appreciate that. And also like and subscribe because when you do that, I don't know what happens. Something magical happens. What magical thing happens when people subscribe to this video?
I think the bees get their wings. Butterflies get their wings.
Butterflies get their wings, yes. And so if you don't like and subscribe, they're going to stay little caterpillars and never get the freedom. That's sad, isn't it? Anyway, we'll be back next week with another amazing gift from Mother Nature, and we'll dive into another essential oil. Until then, take care and blessed be.
Goodbye.